Alright, so here we go back with another video. This time we're going to be repairing a John Deere walk-behind lawnmower 725 Briggs, and it came in for won't start, so let's see what we can do. Okay, so here's the mower here. So you can see it's just a John Deere mower, and it came in for won't start like I said, and we're just going to go ahead and check the gas, and there's literally no gas in it. So we always start with the basics. So I'm going to go ahead and put some gas in it and then go from there. Okay, now that we have some gas in it, I just want to check it because the tank was empty, and it's a possibility that the carburetor is leaking, and actually it is leaking. So I'm going to clamp that off and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, super odd that as soon as I said that the carb could be leaking, and it turns out it actually was. So we've got that diagnosed. We definitely have a fuel issue. So keep in mind, when you have a carburetor that's leaking, the possibilities of it leaking into the cylinder are very high. So this symptom right here could cause the cylinder to fill up with fuel, and when you pull the cord, it could literally feel like a seized engine. So keep that in mind. Another thing you want to do is check the dipstick tube, or the dipstick, smell it. Okay, so it smells a little bit like a gas. It'll also be pretty thin, like that's pretty thin fuel. Sorry, I'm shaking. It's pretty thin fuel, and it should not be dripping like that. Like it should be pretty it should be much thicker than that. So it smells like gas. So they've put gas in this machine, and it leaked into the cylinder, which will also leak into the oil crankcase and overfill the crankcase with gas. So we're definitely going to have to change the oil as well. So keep that in mind. We're going to dig into this carb and go from there. Okay, so we got the mower on the workbench. We're going to go ahead and start digging into the carburetor, and we'll start tearing that thing off. Okay, so what you're going to need is an 8mm wrench, and you're going to take off these 3 bolts right here and just set them down on the deck. This thing has probably never been off. Still has the original Loctite that the manufacturer uses on the carburetor. You can listen to how tight those things are. You're just going to pull it off. Make sure this gasket right here doesn't get damaged or anything. And then if you want, let's go ahead and take off this big cover here. It'll make everything more exposed and easier to work with. Let me get a screwdriver. And you could it's usually just a Phillips screwdriver. You don't have to use a tool. You can use a regular screwdriver. So we'll just set that to the side. Now everything's exposed. So we're going to get some pliers, and you want a 1/4-inch wrench as well. So a 1/4 inch to take off this air vane, or this governor, and then 10mm to take off the 2 bolts. Let me grab that. Okay, so it's as easy as this. Take your tool. You don't have to use a power tool. You can use a regular ratchet. Work just fine. Take that off. Let that kind of sit in place. Grab a 10mm and get that ready. Go ahead and take the fuel line off by unclamping the fuel line hose. And then I usually take the pliers and I'll break the seal, because sometimes the rubber seal will stay attached to the carburetor from the fuel line. So I just kind of break that seal with my pliers, and then the fuel line can come off easier. So now that we've got that off, we'll use our 10mm and take off both bolts that hold the carburetor on. Set these bolts to the side. Okay, I hold the fuel inlet, and then I just literally bend this away, and the carburetor comes right off. Now let's dig in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start cleaning up this carburetor. So I usually just get like a bowl or something. I use gloves because these chemicals can be pretty harsh on your skin. So I just spray the body here just to start breaking up some of that dirt, and then I'll just blow it off here. Nice and light air. Because when you open this up, you don't want the debris from the outside getting onto it. And as you can see, as I drip this gas here, you can see kind of how yellow that gas is. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's pretty yellow. So that right there is old gas. So I have a feeling this inside of this carburetor is going to be pretty nasty. Okay, so now we've got drain. We'll go ahead and take the bottom nut off here. And I have a feeling it's going to be pretty corroded and nasty in here. So let's take it apart and have a look. Oh yeah. So this thing has been sitting for quite a long time with some gas in it, and it shows. So you can see how nasty that is. That's just supposed to be a nice brass looking fitting, and it is absolutely disgusting. So usually you just knock that off like that, but this thing is so corroded that it won't even really come off. So that tells me this carburetor is literally pretty nasty. Let me get a screwdriver. Let's just pry this open here. And there's the inside. So look how swollen this seat is. You want this this float, when it's sitting down, to be sitting parallel with the base of the carburetor, and that thing is absolutely swollen. And that right there, like the float can't even move. It's literally stuck in place because it's so much corrosion. So that's just a prime example of what gas does to these things. And you can't even, the needle's like not even coming out of the carburetor. So that's your problem of why it was leaking so hard. So in this case, yes, it can be rebuilt. It's going to take a lot of cleaning and a lot of going through and a lot of trying to rebuild, but in this case it's actually better to just replace this carburetor. With it being this corroded and this nasty, it's going to be a very hard cleaning. So yes, you can rebuild it, but like I said, it'll take some elbow grease, but I may have another one and I'm just going to slap on the machine. Okay, so I did have another carburetor. As you can see, it's brand new, just a cheap Amazon carburetor. And I'm going to go ahead and slap this thing on there. If y'all want me to, I can go do another video of how to rebuild a carburetor like this. And but in this video, I'm just going to replace it. Okay, so I brought y'all in for a better view here. Let me go ahead and show you the brand new carburetor that we're going to be putting on. It's as simple as taking this linkage, put the carburetor through that linkage, and then round it upwards. And it just bolts in with two of these 10mm bolts, like so. Again, you don't need a power tool. You could use just a standard wrench, ratcheting wrench. I recommend using a wrench if you're not familiar with how much power or how much torque these things put out. You want to put the air vane back on with a 1/4 inch wrench. You want to make sure this moves forward easily, not snagging on anything, and it pumps right back. Okay, take your fuel line, let a little bit of fuel out. Yep, the fuel's nice and clear, and put the fuel line back on, unclamp it. I'm going to use a set of pliers here. Put the fuel line back on, and we're good to go to start putting the air filter housing on. Okay, like I said before, make sure you don't lose this gasket here. There's a tube right here. It goes to this breather gasket. This is a crankcase breather. It just throws it right back into the carburetor or into the intake, and it goes right there. Now we'll thread in our 3 8mm bolts, like so. Keep them kind of loose until you get them all started. Okay. Good to go. Okay, we're going to go ahead and check our air filter. Air filter is not terrible, but when you replace a carburetor, you definitely always want to replace the air filter. A brand new air filter, going right in, put it into the housing, put the 3 tabs into the bottom, fold it up, and then put your 8mm bolt back in. Take your Phillips screwdriver, and we're going to put the big cover back on. Screw your screws in, like so. Okay, cover's back on, and then we'll go ahead and get it down and fire it up. Okay, so it's pretty hot here in Texas. Sorry, I'm sweating, but it's hot. It's over 100 degrees, and I'm in my garage with no AC or anything. So, got the carburetor replaced. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up. Okay, so the mower runs perfect without issues, and now we have a unit to give back to the customer that runs just like it was straight from the factory. If you guys want to see me go through the carburetor and rebuild the carburetor that is in that bad of shape, hit the like button, subscribe, comment below if you want me to do it or not, and I'll do a video on how to thoroughly go through it. Yes, it takes a lot of work. But when you're pushing out a lot of units, you have to cut your losses where you can. So like, you may be an hour into that rebuilding, cleaning, and putting it back on the unit. It may surge or run bad still. Taking it off, rebuilding, and and you're gonna fighting that carburetor when at the beginning you should have just rebuilt it. So it's different if it just has some like dirty gas in it, or just a little bit of corrosion, and you can just rebuild it and it's not terrible. But when it's in like that bad of shape, then you're gonna, like I said, you gotta cut your losses. So I hope you'll like the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.